Hold the door! Oh, hey guys, what's up? And today I'm gonna do a review on the very new season of Game of Thrones. Hell yeah! I'm finally catching up with the show. Okay, before we continue, I'm tired of recapping the entire show for you. It's so complicated, so please watch the video where I recap the entire show under 30 minutes. Link in the description. But if you're caught up, then good job, because you saved yourself 29 minutes. After the game-changing The Winds of Winter, everyone was salivating for another Game of Thrones season. The hype was so strong. What would Cersei do? Where was Daenerys going? How's Sam in Citadel? What would Arya do next? Where's Ed Sheeran? All these questions are answered. The first episode is Dragonstone. Seriously, the recap sequence was amazing. The intense and massive explosion of the Sept, constantly switching over to the calm and quiet death of Tommen, then switching to Cersei's evil bitch face, then switch back. It's really well edited, and they really gave effort for this. And then there's a teaser before the title sequence. We see Walder Frey talking, but of course, it's not him. Like, he's dead. How come it's him? It's Arya. Duh. Walder Frey already died last season, but I'm glad his actor can do one more scene. Yes, it's a cool scene, but not like we've never seen mass poisoning on television before, and it doesn't make much sense because we had no idea how Arya sneaked into the twins. How did she bake the pie? How did she get the poison? And why had she suddenly become so smart and destroyed the entire house by herself? I need explanations. Okay, I need explanations. And then Euron Greyjoy showed up, trying to team up with Cersei and Jaime. And I have a feeling that Euron is going to be the biggest villain on the season. Also, I love the montage scene where Sam does dirty work in Citadel. The show can't make montages as good as those in Breaking Bad because it's a medieval show about history and politics. There's no sense of humor, there's no sense of comedy. So it's kind of cool how they pull off a montage without any music and just snippets of videos. And of course, the producers decide to put and make an Ed Sheeran cameo. It's like one of those special bonus scenes for die-hard fans of the show and a celebrity cameo. And they get to act with Maisie Williams and get paid. And Ed Sheeran only did a couple of lines. It's an awkward scene, but, you know, it's okay. Yeah, why not? And at the end, Daenerys and her team arrived in Dragonstone and gave us a silent but detailed tour. It's a slow but promising start to a new season. Then it's episode 2, Stormborn. Oh boy, it's an episode 2. The Purple Wedding, Jon Snow's revival, then we have Euron Greyjoy as the ending scene. Episode 2 is usually the slow filler episode, but the rules has changed since season 4, so I really expected something from this episode. First, it's great to see all the character storyline emerge, especially the scenes in Dragonstone where Yara talks about her tragedies, Olenna talks, Ilaria talks, Tyrion talks, and everyone has a story to tell. Then we have Arya, who reunited with both Hot Pie and Nymeria. And Nymeria was huge and very fierce. And it's kind of CGI as well, so... Anyway, then we have Sam trying to cure Jorah's grayscale in the most disgusting way ever. And yes, I totally predicted that Sam's gonna cure Jorah. I would make that happen if I were the writers. But if I were Sam, I would give Jorah milk of the poppy first, because there's no milk of the poppy in the Citadel. What kind of place is it? And also, is Sam a Game of Thrones version of George R.R. Martin? And in the last scene, Euron Greyjoy showed up and hell broke loose and everything went wrong. It's such a small battle scene, but it costed a lot of lives and it triggered Theon's PTSD. So I'm curious how will this affect the plot. It's a pretty good scene, not gonna lie. Moving on to episode 3, The Queen's Justice, which has some solid scenes and definite endings to some storylines. I have to give a spoiler alert. First of all, I don't know why, but Bran just suddenly became so cold-blooded and emotionless. And he met Sansa, he was like, "Hello, Sansa." The old three-eyed raven wasn't emotionless, but Bran was. So I guess that's one of the flaws in this episode. But then we have the long and winding negotiation scenes between Daenerys, Tyrion, and Jon Snow. I mean, they aren't boring, but it's not anything exciting. But I like how Jon Snow and Daenerys ended up, they kind of didn't like each other, but they were kind of impressed with each other also. And I love how the show splits up half a battle. First, the Unsullied broke into the Castle Black and won. And I expected the second half to be on the next episode when Euron Greyjoy intervened them, but apparently the battle episode didn't really happen. But the ending scene is actually cool. Olenna Tyrell had an amazing speech before she died. Savage until the last breath, and Diana Riggs is a pro at dying. Yeah. Episode 4 is called The Spoils of War, and it's leaked. Some guy hacked into HBO and leaked the episode. I didn't watch the leak, but there are people who actually does, and after they watch it, they explode all over the internet screaming spoilers. So now I know why it's called The Spoils of War. 'Cause it was spoiled. Nonetheless, it is a phenomenal episode. There's only a couple storylines. Dragonstone storyline and then Winterfell storyline. Then we have Mark Gatiss chatting with Cersei and also Jaime, Bronn, Randall, and Dickon after the sacking of Highgarden. The ending scene was amazing. It's an amazing battle sequence. It started and ended in brilliant ways. The entire episode is lovely and epic as well. Okay, it's time for some spoilers. At Winterfell, Arya finally arrived to realize that Sansa was in charge. Their reunion scene was good, but not as emotional as Jon Snow reuniting with Sansa. And yes, Mofi is real. And then they reunited with Bran. They were happy and I'm happy. Arya, Brienne, Podrick, Sansa, Peter, and Bran in the same place. Never saw that coming. And then after Jon Snow and Daenerys gave up a little history lesson about the first men and the children of the forest in the Dawn Ages, and then the Long Night, I did my homework, by the way, and I really hoped Jon Snow would forgive Theon. So instead of Daenerys riding Drogon, burning the entire King's Landing, she rode to the Lannister army wherever they were and just burnt the living hell out of them. The Dothrakis charged in and destroyed the Lannister army, so Jaime sent Bronn to use the giant crossbow to shoot Drogon. And it worked. Bronn shot an arrow to Drogon, but not in the heart, so Drogon was still alive, but injured. Daenerys and Drogon fell onto the ground, and Jaime tried to kill Daenerys. Tyrion saw him, and he was like, "Flee, you idiot." Then Drogon turned his head and saw Jaime, and blew fire in his direction. Except someone pushed Jaime into the water, so he's saved. It's a cool battle scene. Not as epic as Battle of the Bastards, and not as painful as Battle of the Wall, but still a wonderful battle. No one of significance died, so if I were Double D, I would kill off Randall Tarley, because he's a dick. Over to episode 5, Eastwatch, where a lot of things had happened, since the previous episode is served as a semi-season finale, and the writers also wanted to reserve the most insane and intense scenes in the last 2 episodes. So the writers needed to squeeze in all the important information into episode 5. That's why it felt kind of rushed, to be honest. There are bits and pieces in the plot that doesn't make much sense, but overall it's still a decent episode. It's not all that great, but it's fine. I'm giving another spoiler alert. First, Jaime and Bronn somehow escaped from Daenerys after coming out of the water. Meanwhile, all the other Lannister armies were held hostage, including Randall and Dickon Tarley, but they got killed by Drogon later. Then we see Arya and Sansa kind of argued, and it wasn't something satisfying to see. Then Arya was spying Littlefinger, which wasn't too smart of an action, because Littlefinger was aware of that apparently and tricked Arya by indirectly showing her a scroll Sansa wrote under Cersei. Then we have a windy scene when Jon Snow was petting Rhaegon. Or was it Drogon? I don't know. Jon and Daenerys had a chat. Then Jorah showed up. One episode from Old Town to Dragonstone. Then Tyrion had an idea to show Cersei a White Walker. And so Davos and Tyrion went to King's Landing from Dragonstone in a split of a second. I like Gendry's return, and I also like Tyrion and Jaime's reunion. It's Jaime and Tyrion's first scene together since The Children. Then Tyrion's plan continued when Jon Snow, Davos, Gendry, and Jorah went from Dragonstone to Eastwatch by the Sea in a split of a second. I thought they would forge some dragon glass weapons first and maybe send a couple more ravens to ask Bran more about it, but no. But on the bright side, Beric, Thoros, and the Hound suddenly showed up, and now they join Jon Snow, and we have the Magnificent Seven of Westeros. Then it's the penultimate episode 6, Beyond the Wall. Jon, Gendry, the Hound, Beric, Thoros, Tormund, and Jorah's insane mission. I feel like Double D is losing control over their own characters, because the character of Daenerys and Arya became much more nonsensical. I accept what Daenerys had done, but what Arya had done was really off the source material, so I wish Double D would fix that up. But other than that, it's a stunning episode, full of intense and insane moments. Although it has a couple of cliches, it's still a great episode overall. But yeah, a lot of people complain how nonsensical and ridiculous the story is, and I personally think the story is still acceptable, but Double D should really make the story make more sense. Now for some spoilers. So the episode mainly focuses on what's happening beyond the wall and what's happening in Winterfell. First, let's talk about Winterfell. I get it. Littlefinger's plan to tear the sisters apart seemed to be working, but it's also very nonsensical. Arya and Sansa finally met each other after a long and dreadful time. Arya escaped King's Landing, Harrenhal, got with the Hound, then got beaten up in Braavos. Sansa was tormented by Joffrey, wed to Tyrion, escaped King's Landing to almost get killed by Lysa, then got raped by Ramsay. Both characters also experienced a lot of terrible things, and I bet they missed each other so much. And now they finally met each other and they were still fighting. Ideally, Arya and Sansa should team up against Littlefinger. Meanwhile, Littlefinger should come up with a better and more effective plan. Then we have the Jon Snow plotline. Oh my gosh, it's really insane. So they found a team of whites, killed all of them except one, and they captured it. Then suddenly they heard a deep rumbling noise. Yep, you know it. The Night King and his army arrived. Jon sent Gendry back to Eastwatch immediately to inform Daenerys for her help. Then they ran across a frozen lake onto a rock, and then they were surrounded by White Walkers. Thoros was injured by an undead bear not long ago, and yeah, he died. And honestly, that's quite predictable, because I would have killed him off, because he's the most insignificant person in the team. Then the whites started to come in, and the team fought them off. Tormund almost died, and it almost could have happened, but it didn't, so I'm glad. And then here comes another predictable moment, where Jon Snow had a Saving Private Ryan moment, when the sounds kind of blur out and Jon was scared. Daenerys showed up with 3 dragons and burnt the hell out of the whites. But it doesn't end there. The Night King threw a spear into Viserion and killed him. And it's shocking. And then Jon Snow was off the rock to fight some whites, and all the other men went away with Daenerys. So Daenerys literally dumped Jon, and then undead Benjen showed up and saved Jon Snow but got killed in the process. And at the end, Daenerys saw Jon's wound and understood how evil the Night King was. I wish the Night King and Cersei's death is on season 8 and Euron should die next episode. And still the episode is quite nonsensical given how fast Gendry would run and the Raven would travel 2 days from Eastwatch, from Castle Black to Dragonstone. Then Daenerys would fly the dragon from Dragonstone to Eastwatch, and they are still surviving, so it's still quite nonsensical. And finally, it's episode 7, The Dragon and the Wolf. First off, I want to say I changed my mind a little bit about the previous episode because I thought more about it and I realized it makes less sense. The whole teleportation thing, it's really weird. Anyway, this episode finally gives us something thoughtful and intricate, with good acting and good dialogue. Tension and drama is built properly, and that's what I really love about the first half. I'm giving a spoiler alert, y'all. The scene that took place in the first half is one of those scenes where it makes me want to be in the Game of Thrones cast, because it's just so much fun to film, oh my gosh. And you're just sitting on some chairs in Belfast, reciting lines for over a week. Going to work for the actors is even better than having holidays. Let me see. Jon Snow, Tyrion, Daenerys, Theon, Varys, Missandei the Hound, Davos, Brienne, Podrick, Bronn, the Mountain, Cersei, Jaime, and Euron. All in the same fucking scene. Are you kidding me? How did the writers even keep track of the characters? Jeez. That's why there's all these small mini-scenes here and there in one big scene. Bronn and Tyrion had a chat. Brienne and the Hound had a chat. The Hound meet his brother again. Cersei and Daenerys had a chat. And by the way, Cersei always have an entrance. I was really happy to see Cersei terrified of a white. I was like, get spooked, bitch. And Tyrion had a speech. And Jon Snow had a speech. It was nice. The relationship between Tyrion and Cersei was really intense. And again, good acting, good dialogues. I love it. The writers also did justice to Theon. Theon got beaten up by a douchebag, and the douchebag kicked him in the privates, except Theon's private are gone, so Theon beat the douchebag up instead and won. It's like the scene in Johnny English 2, and Jon forgave Theon, and that's lovely to know. And I didn't see Littlefinger's trial coming. We see Sansa bringing Arya into the room, and Sansa was like, "You're accused of treason and murder, Lord Baelish." And I didn't see that coming. I love that scene. And to see Arya and Sansa team up again was really nice. Mofi is still real. Or should I say Sanria? Because Mofi's always real. Then Sam and Bran reunited at Winterfell. Then Bran told Sam actually Jon Snow is a Targaryen, and his real name was Aegon. Pretty cool. And then Jon Aegon Snow just walked into Daenerys' room in the boat and screwed her. That love scene everyone wanted. Remember when Kit Harington asked George R.R. Martin to write the sex scene? This is the one. And sorry, Mr. Bran the Builder, because the Night King rode undead Viserion and broke a giant hole in the wall. And the army of the dead proceeded to march past it. And yeah, the second long night is here, guys. In the end, Game of Thrones has presented us another great, grand, and epic season with a lot of entertaining scenes. For me, this season and the next season is like the third and final phase of the story. At the first phase, everyone diverged after Ned Stark's death, and the second phase started in season 4 when a lot of characters swapped their positions. But this season, however, is like season 1, which is very focused and very centralized. There's only 3 storylines in this season, and it's King's Landing with Cersei, Winterfell with Sansa and Arya, and Dragonstone with Daenerys, Tyrion, and Jon Snow. Everyone in the season had pretty much chosen a side, and instead of families versus families, now we have just a team of people from all sorts of plot lines fighting another team of people. This season is also very political and very war-focused. It's way less magical and mystical than season 2 and 5. So it kind of feels like the story is coming to an end. That's why all these storylines have an apocalyptic feel to it. This season really started out slow, but had a decent climax in episode 4. Episode 5 is packed and rushed. Episode 6 is the action episode, and episode 7 is the grand finale. Yes, there's a lot of at-your-face, pretentious action, a lot of rushed scenes, a lot of predictable moments, and the story doesn't make sense in a lot of times. but still, the acting performance, how the writers organized and centralized the storylines, and the entertainment factor also made the season a great one. Yes, it's not as good as season 4 and 6 in my opinion, but I still appreciate it. And I also want to add that this season is unlike any other season on the show Game of Thrones, and it feels kind of like the show has been downgraded. So I think there are two reasons. First of all, I feel like all these events and incidents lacks consequences. For instance, like the episode in the Spoils of War. Yes, it's spectacular. A lot of things happened, but does it really affect any of the characters? Does it really change them in any way, shape, or form? Not really. And I also think that one of the reasons why this season feels a little bit too dry and drab is that because the characters are becoming more and more predictable and useless in a way. For instance, Tyrion. Tyrion had to fight through a lot of things during season 1 to 4, but in the later seasons, he's just an advisor of Daenerys, and he's just there trying to persuade Daenerys to do this, do that, and help her, and blah blah blah, and he has nothing to fight through, honestly. And like characters like Littlefinger and Varys, they are separated apart and they are doing whatever they wanted to do, and I feel like a lot of tension has been removed because of that. Game of Thrones is a show that shows us the dark side of humanity, the sinister and evil side of humanity that also makes a person smart or maybe even wise. It also shows us how important or risky being good and loyal and honorable is. And all these tension and drama between characters, families, and houses are really, really significant. So I feel like there's a chance that I might lower the score a little bit on this season because I just feel like this season is just a series of events showing that two sides of people fighting against each other, and it just feels a little bit too dry, a little bit too pretentious at times. Just a series of events. And also, David Benioff and D.B. Wise are just killing off characters that are insignificant, not characters that are important and that are not supposed to die. So it just starts to feel predictable and dry and underwhelming in a subtle way. But nonetheless, it's still okay. Yeah, now let's get back on the review. By the way, since every episode in this season is like a mini movie, I might as well give a rating to every episode. So here are the ratings. Dragonstone deserves a 7.9, which is really quite high already, which is decent. Stormborn deserves an 8.2. The Queen's Justice, 8.7. 9.5 for the Spoils of War. 8.6 for Eastwatch. 9.3 for Beyond the Wall, and a 9.6 for The Dragon and the Wolf. The worst is episode 1, Dragonstone, and the best is the last episode, The Dragon and the Wolf. I'm saying Game of Thrones Season 7 is still mind-blowing, and I'm giving it a 9 to a really, really, really generous 10 out of 10. So, have you watched the new Game of Thrones season? From 1 to 10, how much would you rate it? Like if you like it, hate if you hate it, and subscribe if you want more.